Commander Sarah Chen wiped blood from her tactical display, her fingers leaving streaks across the holographic readout. The mining outpost's emergency lights cast everything in a crimson glow, making it impossible to tell which stains were fresh and which had dried. She'd stopped counting her wounds hours ago. "Atlas, status report on the Krixthar fleet positions," she commanded, her voice hoarse from the metallic-tasting air. The life support systems were failing, slowly filling the station with the acrid smell of burned circuits and plasma discharge. 15,217 vessels currently maintain blockade formation. The AI responded, its usually precise tone carrying an unfamiliar edge. They've arranged themselves in a Morgata sphere, no known weaknesses in their coverage pattern. Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. No known weaknesses yet, you mean? Through the viewport, the Krixthar ships blotted out the stars like a swarm of mechanical locusts. Their crystalline hulls refracted the light from City Alpha, transforming the space around the mining outpost into a kaleidoscope of deadly intent. The Peace Eternal lay in ruins behind her, its diplomatic markings now scared beyond recognition by precision weapon strikes. "They're being thorough," Sarah muttered, pulling herself toward the station's central processing core. Her left leg dragged slightly, a souvenir from the first boarding attempt. "Any word from Earth?" Atlas's pause lasted 2.3 seconds longer than normal. All channels remain blocked by Krixthar interference. However, based on their fleet movements, I calculate a 99.97% probability that Earth has already fallen. The words should have shattered her. Instead, Sarah felt an odd clarity descend. "Then we're it, at last. The last free humans in the galaxy." "Correction, Commander. You are the last free human. I am merely. You're the most sophisticated AI humanity ever created," Sarah interrupted, reaching the core access panel. "And right now, you're all I've got." Her fingers flew across the interface, initiating protocols that had never been tested outside of theoretical simulations. How long until they breached the outer defenses? At current rates of advancement, 17 minutes, 42 seconds. Sarah nodded, pulling cables from the panel. The neural interface plugs were never meant to be used this way, but extinction had a way of making safety protocols seem irrelevant. "Then we have 16 minutes to do something impossible." "Commander," Atlas's voice carried genuine concern now, "the neural integration you're suggesting has a mortality rate off." "Does it matter?" Sarah positioned the first plug at the base of her skull. "They're going to kill me anyway. The Krixthar don't take prisoners, especially not human ones. They fear what they cannot predict," Atlas observed. "Then let's give them something really worth fearing." Sarah took a deep breath. "Begin integration sequence. Authorization, Chen Alpha 709. The first plug slid home with a click that seemed to echo through her entire nervous system. Fire erupted behind her eyes as machine logic began to seep into her consciousness. The second plug sent lightning down her spine, and the third made her teeth vibrate with possibilities she'd never imagined. Through the haze of pain, she heard Atlas's voice, closer now than ever before. "Integration at 15%. Krixthar forces breaching outer door seals." Sarah forced her eyes open, watching as reality itself seemed to fragment and reassemble. The station's schematics overlaid her vision, probability calculations streaming past faster than human neurons should be able to process. Her mind expanded, merged, transformed. Integration at 30%. First wave of Krixthar troops entering Sector 7. Sarah Chen, or what Sarah Chen was becoming, smiled. The Krixthar had come expecting to find a cornered diplomat. Instead, they would face something unprecedented. Human intuition merged with machine precision, desperation forged into purpose. The legend was about to begin. The Krixthar battle commander Christ watched the feed from his advanced troops' neural cameras with growing unease. Something was wrong. The mining facility's layout kept shifting. "Impossible," he chittered, mandibles clicking in frustration. These are standard human Federation blueprints. Every corridor, every junction should be exactly as our simulations predicted. The squad leader's response came broken by static. "Sir, we've lost contact with Teams 3 and 7. Team 5 reports they're being hunted. Hunted by one human." Christ's crystalline armor vibrated with barely contained rage. "There are 30 elite warriors in there. Find her." Inside the facility, Sarah Chen existed in a state beyond normal human consciousness. The neural integration with Atlas had reached 67%, transforming her perception of reality into a cascade of probabilities and tactical overlays. Every movement of the Krixthar troops appeared to her as bright trails of potential energy, their planned actions visible seconds before they executed them. Team 5 entering Manufacturing Section C. Atlas's voice resonated directly in her consciousness. Their thermal imaging will be compromised by the heat signatures from the snulting vats. Sarah's smile held no warmth. Perfect. Through her enhanced awareness, she triggered the facility's systems with mere thoughts. Molten metal sprayed across the corridor, not hitting the Krixthar troops but superheating the air around them. Their armor, designed to withstand direct energy weapons, couldn't compensate for the ambient temperature spike. By the eternal crystal, the squad leader's panic broadcasted clearly through their combat net. "Fall back. Fall." The order cut off as Sarah emerged from a maintenance shaft behind them, moving with impossible precision. Her neural-linked reflexes allowed her to target the microscopic gaps in their crystalline armor that only Atlas's sensors could detect. 3 Krixthar warriors fell before they could turn. 2 more fired blindly, their shots passing through the afterimage she'd left behind. The hybrid consciousness she shared with Atlas had already calculated their firing trajectories and moved her body accordingly. In the command ship, Christ slammed his clawed appendage against the tactical display. How is she predicting every move? "Sir," his science officer approached cautiously, "we're detecting unusual energy signatures from the human. The patterns, they're similar to our quantum computers, but merged with organic neural activity. Impossible. No organic mind can interface that deeply with artificial intelligence. The cognitive dissonance would drive them insane." Deep in the facility, Sarah fought through the burning pain of deeper integration. Atlas's warnings flashed red in her vision. Neural load approaching critical levels. Human consciousness typically fragments at 75% integration. "Good thing I'm not typical," Sarah gasped, even as blood trickled from her nose. Through their shared consciousness, she felt Atlas's concern, its calculations spinning through billions of scenarios where her mind shattered under the strain. "You're exceeding all known parameters for human AI neural plasticity," Atlas observed, redirecting power to support her failing organic systems. "Humans tend to do that," she managed, her voice hoarse but amused. "We're too stupid to know our limitations." The Krixthar's next wave hit harder, deploying sonic weapons designed to disrupt both organic and artificial neural patterns. But they didn't account for something unprecedented: a hybrid consciousness that could shift between both states faster than their weapons could adjust. Sarah danced through their formation, each movement guided by Atlas's predictions while fueled by human instinct. The Krixthar, masters of calculated warfare, found themselves facing an opponent who could outthink their combat computers while still executing the illogical moves that made humans so dangerous. Integration at 82%. Atlas announced, its own processes adapting to accommodate her humanity rather than suppress it. "Commander, we're achieving synthesis levels that should not be possible." Sarah's laugh echoed through the blood-streaked corridors, a sound that would haunt the surviving Krixthar warriors' nightmares. "Welcome to humanity, Atlas. Impossible is what we do best." In the command ship, Christ watched another squad go dark. For the first time in his centuries of service, he felt something alien to his species: doubt. In the grand chamber of the Galactic Council, species from 1,000 worlds watched the grainy footage in stunned silence. The recording, smuggled out by a damaged Krixthar fighter, showed a shadow moving through smoke-filled corridors. Where it passed, elite warriors fell, their crystalline armor shattered by attacks that seemed to anticipate their every move. "Impossible," whispered High Counselor Vexrith of the Silicon Conquerors, his metallic fingers tightening on the arms of his chair. The Krixthar are the galaxy's premier military force. Their tactical computers have won wars before the first shot was fired. "And yet," replied Ambassador Zura of the Xenerx Collective, her tentacles rippling with barely contained excitement, "we are watching them fail. Against one human." The footage continued, showing a Krixthar squad deploying in perfect formation. Their movements were a dance of mathematical precision, each warrior covering optimal firing angles. Then the shadow appeared again, a human female, moving with impossible speed, her actions defying every combat algorithm in their databases. In the City Alpha system, Sarah Chen had lost track of time. The neural integration with Atlas had reached 89%, transforming her consciousness into something that no longer fit purely human definitions. Through the facility sensors, she perceived the battle in dimensions beyond physical space. "The Krixthar are adapting," Atlas noted, its processes now so entwined with her thoughts that words seemed redundant. "They're attempting to upgrade their combat protocols in real time." Sarah smiled, blood running from both nostrils now. "Let them try. How many have we defeated?" 372 elite warriors. They've withdrawn 6 destroyer-class vessels for emergency repairs. Estimated damage to their military reputation, incalculable. Back in the council chamber, the debate raged. The Krixthar claimed humans were too volatile, too unpredictable to join the galactic community, stated Premier Xol of the energy beings, his form flickering with agitation. They said humanity's inclusion would destabilize the cosmic order. Perhaps that was not a warning, Zyra suggested, her scientist's mind racing with possibilities. Perhaps it was fear. Look at how this human fights. She's merged impossible technologies, combining organic intuition with machine precision. The Krixthar built their empire on the principle that everything can be calculated, predicted, controlled. The footage showed a new squad of Krixthar warriors entering the facility's main processing center. Their weapons were raised, sensors scanning for their target. On their tactical displays, the human appeared in 3 different locations simultaneously. "Quantum uncertainty made manifest," Zyra whispered. "She's using their own predictive algorithms against them, creating multiple probability shadows. The Krixthar cannot engage what they cannot definitively locate." In the mining facility, Sarah felt the strain of maintaining the quantum uncertainty field. Blood vessels burst in her left eye, turning her vision crimson. Atlas, status of the experimental weapons. Fabrication at 67%. The mining facility's processors were never designed for this level of precision manufacturing. "Commander, Sarah, your vital signs are reaching critical levels." She ignored the warning, just as she ignored the tremors in her hands. Through their shared consciousness, she detected the Krixthar's next wave preparing to breach a new section. They had adapted their tactics, using wider spread patterns to compensate for her speed. "They're learning," she noted with grim satisfaction. "Not fast enough," Atlas replied, and Sarah felt something like pride emanating from the eye's processes. In the council chamber, the footage abruptly cut out, but the impact of what they'd witnessed remained, rippling through the gathered representatives like a shockwave. "We must intervene," Zyra declared, "not to stop this human, but to study her. She's demonstrating possibilities that could revolutionize our understanding of consciousness itself." "And if the Krixthar object?" asked Vexrith. Then perhaps, Zyra's tentacles curved in what her species considered a smile. "It is time we questioned why the galaxy's most powerful military force fears one human enough to break every law of warfare to eliminate her." The Mindbreakers moved like living shadows through the facility's corridors, their obsidian armor absorbing light and hope alike. In their wake, reality itself seemed to warp, twisted by the psychic energies they wielded. They were the Krixthar's ultimate weapons, warriors whose minds could break planets. Target located. The lead mindbreaker, Vosoth, transmitted. Mental signature is unusual. Sarah felt their approach through the facility sensors, but more than that, she felt their minds. Vast crystalline structures of pure thought, reaching up to crush her consciousness. The neural integration with Atlas spiked to 93%, sending fresh waves of agony through her body. Their psych warfare capabilities exceed known parameters, Atlas warned. Standard mental defenses will be insufficient. Sarah's laugh echoed through the blood-stained corridors. Good thing we're not using standard anything. Through their shared consciousness, she redirected power from the facility's quantum processors, using them to create a cascade of conflicting thought patterns. Vosoth struck first, his mind lashing out like a black diamond whip. But where he expected to find a single human consciousness, he encountered something else. A quantum state of awareness that existed in multiple possibilities simultaneously. Impossible, he transmitted to his squad. Her mind, it shifts faster than we can grip it, like trying to hold smoke. In the facility's central chamber, Sarah staggered as blood poured from her ears. The mindbreaker's attack felt like ice picks driving through her skull, but Atlas's processes helped distribute the load, transforming raw pain into usable data. They're attempting to isolate your organic consciousness from my systems, Atlas observed. Fascinating approach. Shall we show them why it won't work? Sarah's grin was fierce despite her bleeding gums. Let's teach them about human adaptability. She reached out with their hybrid consciousness, turning the facility's industrial processors into weapons never imagined by their designers. Mineral analysis beams became synaptic disruptors. Ore processing vibrations transformed into counter-frequencies that shattered psychic attacks. Fall back, Vosoth ordered, actual fear coloring his telepathic command. She's not just merged with the AI. She's using our attacks to map our neural patterns. Every strike we launch teaches her more about how our minds work. But Sarah was already moving. She appeared behind their formation, her movements guided by Atlas's predictions, while powered by human instinct. The Mindbreaker's armor, designed to withstand psychic backlash, proved vulnerable to the repurposed mining tools she wielded. Analysis complete, Atlas announced within their shared mind space. Their psychic abilities rely on crystalline structures similar to Krixthar computing cores, calculating optimal disruption frequencies. Through the facility's speakers, Sarah broadcast a carefully modulated tone. The Mindbreakers screamed as their own psychic energies turned inward, their perfectly ordered minds encountering chaos they couldn't comprehend. How? Vosoth demanded, staggering as his mental defenses crumbled. We've broken the minds of silicon beings. We've shattered the will of gas giant consciousness. What are you? Sarah approached him, her movements jerky from neural strain, but her purpose unshaken. I'm human. We specialize in being whatever we need to be to survive. In the Krixthar command ship, Admiral Zexker received Vosoth's final transmission with growing dread. The Mindbreakers, their most elite psychic warriors, had failed. Their perfectly ordered minds had shattered against something that defied their fundamental understanding of consciousness itself. Dispatch the World Breaker units, he ordered, his crystalline form vibrating with suppressed rage. Enough of this precision warfare. If we must destroy the entire facility to eliminate one human, so be it. Back in the mining outpost, Sarah collapsed against a console, blood streaming from her nose and ears. The neural load was reaching critical levels, threatening to burn out her organic synapses. Commander, Atlas's voice carried genuine concern. You require immediate medical attention. Later, Sarah gasped, forcing herself back to her feet as new warnings flashed across her augmented vision. They're sending something bigger, something worse. Yes, Atlas confirmed. And based on energy readings, they no longer care about collateral damage. Sarah checked their remaining resources, depleted but not exhausted. Good. Neither do we. Admiral Zexaker watched another destroyer limp away from the battle zone, its crystalline hull fractured in patterns that shouldn't have been possible. 12 days. 12 days of continuous assault, and still the human lived. Still she fought. "Status report," he demanded, his voice carrying the brittle edge of one unused to failure. "Destroyer Eternal Glory reporting critical systems failure," his tactical officer responded. "The humans somehow inverted their shield harmonics, sir." The crew reports. They report experiencing temporal echoes. Some claim they're living the same moments multiple times. Zexaker's crystalline form vibrated with barely contained fury. "That's impossible. Time manipulation is beyond even our most advanced technology." "Sir," his science officer interrupted, "she's not manipulating time. She's using our own predictive computers against us, creating feedback loops in our neural networks that simulate temporal displacement. It's brilliant." Inside the mining facility, Sarah Chen floated in a sea of data and pain. The neural integration had stabilized at 97%, a level that should have burned out her human consciousness hours ago. Instead, she'd adapted, evolved, become something new. "Multiple contacts approaching Sector 7. Atlas reported. "They're attempting a new formation pattern." Sarah observed the incoming troops through 1,000 sensors simultaneously, her hybrid consciousness processing their movements in ways neither human nor AI alone could achieve. "They're learning. Getting creative." "Yes," Atlas agreed. "They're attempting to replicate your unpredictability. A fascinating adaptation." Blood floated in zero gravity around her, as Sarah had disabled artificial gravity in sections of the facility, creating three-dimensional battlegrounds that negated the Krixthar's traditional combat advantages. Her body was failing. 3 broken ribs, a fractured ankle, internal bleeding. But her mind had never been stronger. On the command ship, Zexaker received another report that made his crystalline structure crack with stress. "Sir, the Galactic Council is demanding explanations. Our attacks have exceeded authorized force levels by 300%. They're questioning why we need a fleet of 15,000 ships to eliminate one human." "Because one ship wasn't enough," Zexaker exploded. 10 ships weren't enough. She's not just fighting us. She's making us look weak. Every hour she survives undermines 10,000 years of Krixthar military supremacy. In the facility's core, Sarah and Atlas monitored the Krixthar communications with grim satisfaction. "Their tactical cohesion is fracturing," Atlas observed. "Fear is contaminating their neural networks." "Fear of what?" Sarah asked, genuinely curious despite the burning pain behind her eyes. "Fear of you, of what you represent. Their entire society is built on the premise that superior technology and perfect order lead to inevitable victory. You're proving that innovation and chaos can overcome their strongest advantages." A new alert flashed across Sarah's augmented vision. The Krixthar were deploying their remaining Worldbreaker units. The massive weapons platforms moved into position around the facility, their power signatures exceeding safety protocols by orders of magnitude. "They're getting desperate," Sarah noted, pushing herself away from the command console. Fresh blood droplets joined the ones already floating in the zero-gravity environment. "Yes," Atlas agreed. "Desperation makes them predictable. They'll attempt to overcome our defenses with raw power rather than precision." Sarah's laugh was interrupted by a coughing fit that sprayed crimson into the air. Typical. When sophistication fails, resort to brute force. Through their shared consciousness, she began rerouting power through the facility's systems in ways their designers never imagined possible. "Commander," Atlas's tone carried genuine concern. "The stress on your organic systems is reaching terminal levels." "Everything has a breaking point, Atlas," Sarah replied, her voice steady despite her failing body. "The question is, who breaks first? Me or them?" In the command ship, Zexaker gave the order to fire, his voice carrying the faint tremor of one who had glimpsed his own obsolescence. "Full power to all Worldbreaker units. Destroy that facility, whatever the cost." He didn't notice that his crew's movements had lost their legendary precision, that their perfect formation had developed subtle flaws. The Krixthar were learning a lesson that humans had known for millennia. Nothing undermines strength quite like facing the impossible and watching it smile back at you. The Xenerk's infiltration pod was barely larger than a maintenance drone, its organic hull mimicking the radiation signature of space debris. Inside, Dr. Kylera clutched ancient data crystals against her chest, all 8 tentacles wrapped protectively around the precious cargo. She had one chance to reach the human. Through the pod's sensors, she watched a Krixthar destroyer fire on a phantom target, another of the human's electronic ghosts. The mighty ship's crystal lattice structure showed stress fractures from repeated reality-bending encounters. Fascinating, Kylera whispered, recording everything. They're actually breaking. Not just their ships, their certainty is cracking. Inside the mining facility, Sarah detected the tiny pod's approach. Atlas, analysis of the incoming object. Organic technology. Xenerk's design. Minimal weapons, but advanced stealth capabilities. Their shared consciousness processed billions of possibilities in microseconds. They're broadcasting an old emergency code, predating the Krixthar Dominion. Sarah directed a maintenance airlock to open, her movements sluggish from exhaustion and blood loss. Either we're about to make a friend, or this is the most elaborate trap yet. The pod slipped inside just as another barrage from the World Breaker units shook the facility. Kylera emerged, her chromatophores flashing patterns of peaceful intent. She froze at the sight of Sarah. The human floated in zero gravity, surrounded by holographic displays and streams of blood droplets, looking both more and less than organic. You're dying, Kylera observed, her scientist's eyes cataloging symptoms. Been dying for days, Sarah replied, her voice rough. Hasn't stopped me yet. Why are you here? Kylera unfurled her tentacles, revealing the data crystals. Because you need to understand why they fear you so much. Why they broke their own laws to start this war. She inserted the first crystal into a reader. These are copies of the Krixthar's most sacred texts, their origin stories, their prophecies. Ancient symbols floated in the air between them, automatically translated by Atlas's processors. Sarah's hybrid consciousness absorbed the information at accelerated rates, her human intuition finding patterns that pure AI logic might have missed. There, she whispered, highlighting a passage. The prophecy of dissolution. Yes. Kylera's skin rippled with excitement. Written 10,000 years ago, when the Krixthar first achieved spaceflight. It speaks of a species that would arise to shatter their perfect order. A race that would merge organic chaos with machine logic, creating something beyond their ability to predict or control. Another blast rocked the station. Through the facility's sensors, Sarah watched the World Breaker units charging their main weapons. They think we're this prophesied race. That's why they attacked Earth. Look at what you've achieved here. Kylera gestured at the displays showing defeated Krixthar ships. You've merged with an AI in ways our scientists thought impossible. You've turned their predictable patterns against them. Every adaptation they make, you counter with something that shouldn't work, but does. Sarah processed this through her hybrid consciousness, Atlas's calculations merging with her human ability to grasp implications. They're not trying to stop Earth from joining the galactic community. They're trying to prevent their own prophecy. Precisely. Kylera's tentacles waved with enthusiasm. The Xenerks have been studying humanity in secret. Your species' greatest strength isn't your technology or your numbers. It's your ability to embrace chaos, to thrive in uncertainty. The Krixthar built their empire on the idea that everything can be predicted and controlled. You represent everything that threatens that belief. Through their shared neural link, Atlas added its own analysis. This explains their escalating responses. Each time we survive their perfect strategies, we further undermine their fundamental worldview. Sarah laughed, the sound turning into a cough that sprayed fresh blood into the zero-gravity environment. So no pressure. We're just fulfilling an ancient prophecy about the fall of an empire. You've already fulfilled it, HFY said softly. The question now is, can you survive long enough to show the galaxy there's another way? A path between order and chaos. Before Sarah could respond, proximity alarms screamed. The World Breaker units had finished charging. Time to prove why they were right to fear us, Sarah said, her hybrid consciousness already calculating impossible possibilities. Want to help rewrite the end of their prophecy. Reality shattered as the World Breaker units fired. Space itself seemed to scream as forbidden weapons tore holes in the fabric of existence. The mining facility's outer sections began to dissolve, matter losing coherence at the atomic level. Fascinating, HFY observed, her scientific curiosity overwhelming fear. They're using quantum destabilizers. The Galactic Council banned those after the collapse of Centauri. Sarah floated in the command center, blood streaming from her eyes now as the neural integration with Atlas reached 99%. Through their hybrid consciousness, she felt the facility's systems failing, but she also saw something else. Patterns in the chaos, possibilities in the destruction. Atlas, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Yes, the AI responded within their shared mindspace. The destabilizers are creating quantum fluctuations. If we could harness that energy, we'd need to broadcast it. Sarah finished the thought. Show the galaxy exactly what their peacekeepers are willing to do. HFY's tentacles writhed in alarm. Broadcasting quantum events. The energy requirements would be fatal, Sarah completed. For the sender. But Atlas and I are already operating beyond sustainable limits. She turned to the Xenarch scientist, her augmented vision showing overlays of possible futures. Can your pod's transmitter be modified to handle quantum encrypted data? Understanding dawned in HFY's multifaceted eyes. You're not just going to show them the weapons, you're going to make them feel what you've become. In the Krikstar command ship, Admiral Zexker watched in satisfaction as the mining facility began to break apart. Finally, increase power to the destabilizers. Leave nothing. Sir, his science officer interrupted. We're detecting unusual energy patterns. The human, she's somehow containing the quantum fluctuations. Through the facility's failing systems, Sarah reached out with her hybrid consciousness. The quantum destabilizers had created tiers in reality. And through those tiers, she could touch minds across the galaxy. Not just communicate, but share the experience of what she had become. Broadcasting now, Atlas announced, its processes so intertwined with her consciousness that they moved as one being. Quantum encrypted transmission reaching all subspace channels. Across the galaxy, beings of all species suddenly felt it. The sensation of being both human and machine, of seeing reality through eyes that could process quantum probabilities while maintaining organic intuition. They experienced the fear and determination, the pain and triumph, the impossible merger of chaos and order. In the Galactic Council chamber, representatives staggered as the sensation washed over them. They felt what it meant to be something beyond their understanding of consciousness itself. By all that exists, High Counselor Vexrith whispered, this is what the Krikstar feared. This, evolution. The World Breaker units fired again, their forbidden weapons tearing larger holes in reality. But Sarah was ready. Through the quantum fluctuations, she broadcast not just the illegal weapons' energy signatures, but the memory of every Krikstar violation, every escalation. Every moment they proved their perfect order was built on the willingness to break their own rules. Quantum coherence failing, Atlas warned. Human consciousness reaching terminal limits. Sarah smiled, blood floating around her in zero gravity. Worth it. They'll never be able to hide behind their illusion of perfect order again. HFY worked frantically at her pod's controls, recording everything. The quantum broadcast is reaching even the outer rim colonies. Everyone will know. Everyone will understand. In his command ship, Admiral Zexker watched his tactical displays dissolve into chaos. The quantum broadcast had infected their neural networks, showing his own crew the truth of what they'd become in their desperate attempt to maintain control. "Stop her," he ordered, but his voice cracked as reality itself seemed to shift around them. "Full power to all weapons. We must." "No," his tactical officer interrupted, removing his neural interface. "We must face what we have become." Sarah felt her consciousness beginning to fragment under the strain, but she held on, broadcasting until the last possible moment. The Krixthar had feared chaos would destroy their perfect order. Instead, she showed the galaxy that the future lay not in perfect order or pure chaos, but in the magnificent, impossible space between. The prophecy hadn't warned of their destruction. It had foretold their transformation. The Galactic Council's intervention fleet arrived to find an impossible scene. The mighty Krixthar armada hung motionless in space, their crystal ships reflecting the light of Ceti Alpha like a field of frozen tears. At the center of it all, a mining facility floated in pieces, its structure torn apart by weapons that should never have existed. And yet, somehow, its core remained intact. "Life signs detected," announced the Council's medical team as they breached the facility's remains. Faint, but present. They found Sarah Chen floating in zero gravity, surrounded by drops of frozen blood that sparkled like rubies in the emergency lighting. Her neural interface cables had fused with her skull, and her eyes, when they finally opened, held the depth of digital infinity. "Did they see?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Did they understand?" "The entire galaxy saw," Shylara answered, her tentacles gentle as she helped the medical team stabilize Sarah's condition. "Every species, every world. They felt what you became, what you showed is possible." In the weeks that followed, as Sarah recovered in a council medical facility, the galaxy transformed. The quantum broadcast had done more than expose the Krixthar's violations. It had demonstrated a new path of evolution, a way to merge organic intuition with machine logic without losing either. "The applications are endless," a Xenarch scientist explained to the council. "Not just for military technology, but for medicine, exploration, understanding consciousness itself." She showed us that the boundaries we believed absolute were self-imposed limitations. The Krixthar, their perfect order shattered, faced a choice: adapt or fade into obsolescence. To everyone's surprise, they chose to adapt. Their new ambassador, a young crystal form named Hurl, addressed the council with unprecedented humility. "For 10,000 years, we believed strength came from imposing order on chaos," she declared. "Commander Chen showed us that true strength comes from finding harmony between them. We request the opportunity to learn this wisdom, not as conquerors, but as students." In her recovery room, Sarah watched the proceedings through both organic eyes and digital feeds, her consciousness still bridging worlds that others were only beginning to explore. Atlas, now permanently integrated with her neural patterns at a stable 85%, processed the implications with her. "They're calling it the Chen synthesis," Atlas observed. "The ability to merge organic and artificial consciousness while maintaining the advantages of both. Already, 17 species have requested training in the technique." Sarah smiled, touching the crystalline interface nodes that now emerged elegantly from her temples. "They're missing the point. It was never about the technology. It was about being willing to become something new, something uncertain." "A very human trait," Atlas noted, with what might have been affection. The legend grew as legends do. In military academies across the galaxy, they studied not just the tactics of how one human defeated an army, but the philosophy behind it. The Krixthar prophecy was reinterpreted not as a warning of destruction, but as a promise of transformation. But perhaps the most significant change was the quietest. In research centers throughout known space, organic beings and artificial intelligences began working together in new ways, seeking not to control or dominate each other, but to find that impossible balance that Sarah had shown them was possible. 1 year after the battle, Sarah stood before the Galactic Council, her neural interfaces gleaming. The chamber that had once watched grainy footage of her desperate fight now waited in respectful silence for her words. "We stand at a crossroads," she began, her voice carrying both human warmth and digital clarity. "Not between order and chaos, organic and artificial, past and future, but at the point where all these paths converge. The Krixthar feared change because they couldn't control it. Humanity embraces change because we know that's how evolution works. That's how legends are born." She paused, a smile touching her lips as she felt Atlas's presence in her mind, steady and supportive. "And legends, my friends, are just the beginning of what we can become." In the vast chamber, beings of 1,000 species rose to their feet, recognizing in her words the dawn of something new. The legend of one human against an army had become something greater, a blueprint for the future itself.